Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Game Day Gameplay, the sports segment of Console Space. I'm your host, Sean Colangelo, and I'm joined, as always, by the man I envy the most, especially right now, in the wintertime, Todd from Florida. What's up, man? How's it going?
It's going good, Sean. How you doing?
Dude, it is like 1 degree outside.
One
So,
degree, exactly one.
it's a little higher than that, but it's been like in the single digits for the last couple days up here, and my god. Um,
It's not too bad today. It was Christmas Day. It got down into like the 30s, low 30s, and our heater was actually broke, so it was like 52 in my apartment at one point, and it wasn't fun. But that's fixed now, and
That does
that's all
suck,
good.
but I would take 52 so hard right now, like happily.
Well,
Um,
52 when you're used to 80 is pretty bad.
yeah, that's true, that's true. Um, for a second time, we have a special guest. He's not a doctor, but he plays one on TV. Cody Fluharty, how's it going, man?
Doing good. How are you?
Not bad. You're still in town on your holiday break. We're going to get some wings tomorrow, and I'm excited. Um, so let's just go ahead and get started. Boys, what is up with the NBA?
What is up with the NBA? We got some injury news to announce. That's kind of really the only news you've got at this point in the NBA until they start making deals closer to the deadline. But um, Jeff Teague, Minnesota Timberwolves guard, he's out indefinitely with a left knee sprain. They don't have a timeline on his return at this point. He's averaging about 13 points a game, so he's a guy that can make an impact for the T-Wolves. They don't want him out long term, but it's a knee sprain, so it just depends on the severity. Could be a couple weeks, could be long term. Um, Reggie Jackson for the Pistons is out 6 to 8 weeks with a ankle sprain, a pretty bad one, obviously, if it's 6 to 8 weeks. Um, Chris Paul is still missing games. They haven't really given him a timeline. They've just kind of been taking it game by game, but he's not playing in the next game. Um, he has a left adductor strain, and obviously he's a big piece down there in Houston. They want him back as soon as possible. And Jaylen Brown, the second-year sensation for Boston, has suffered an apparent leg injury in the last game. He left in the middle of the game, didn't return. He was seen leaving the arena on a crutch, but there's no update on the team if he actually is injured, if it's a long-term injury, if it's a short-term, what actually happened. No news from that yet, but obviously that's not good news because he's their second leading scorer behind Kyrie. They don't want him out of the lineup, especially with the kind of mini slump they're going through with a little bit of struggles there. Um, Other than that, a little bit of a weird thing happened in the Thunder Raptors game earlier this week. There was an electrical issue up in the rafters that caused a small fire to break out in the middle of the game. Um, Smoke, everything kind of erupted engulfed the arena a little bit. It wasn't a huge fire. It wasn't anything that was threatening. They got it under control pretty quick, but it did make them stop playing a little bit in the third quarter, and that's just kind of like a crazy thing you don't see happen a lot.
So,
Fire an arena during the middle of a game.
so what you're saying is the Raptors need to fix their rafters.
Yes. Yes. I don't know if it was in Toronto though, so it could be the Thunder need to fix the Raptors, but I didn't see it was home and away in that game. I think it was in Toronto, but I might have just ruined your pun. I apologize.
You did, but it's all
You
right.
just went along with it.
It's fine.
we'll just ignore that. Technically, where the standings sit, Boston's still in first place in the East, 28 and 10. They could have been on a little bit of a slide. They're 5 and 5 in their last 10, so they're struggling right now. While other teams are starting to pick up pace. Toronto's actually moved up into second in the East, 23 and 10. Cleveland is 24 and 11. Detroit is 19 and 14. And Washington is 19 and 16, sitting there in the top five.
Hey, Todd, what's Miami's record?
Miami, they're actually eighth in the conference, so they're just inside the playoff line. They're 18 and 16.
Just over 500.
Flu, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
I mean, we've been pretty banged up. We're getting Whiteside back here soon.
They're 7 and 3 in their last 10 though, so they're playing pretty well right now.
We're starting to pick up some steam.
They're one of the hottest. How about Chicago though, Flu? I mean,
So wait.
I know they had
Yeah, they're doing some things with their center back.
Would you would you guys say Miami is heating up?
Yeah, Sean.
Are we trying to do news here, or are we just making fun?
Ah, I just asked the
Sean's
question.
practicing
Go
his
ahead.
stand-up routine.
Yeah, Chicago's 8-2 in their last 10. I mean, they've been one of the hottest teams in the last couple weeks. Now they're still 12-22 because they had an absolute dumpster fire to start,
Yeah,
and they're
they
still
actually have a
11th
better
in the
record than the
conference.
Lakers.
But what's going on with that, Flu? You're the resident NBA guy. Who did they get back? That's
I can't remember his name. It's something kind of foreign, but it's their center. And since he's
okay.
came back, he has been. I don't know. Things are just clicking at this point.
Something kind of foreign. So much for Connor left.
Now
Okay.
I know the Sixers are supposed to be kind of on pace for having a good year. They're now 2-8 in their last 10, so they're going through a skid.
Yeah, they started off really hot, but then
Mhm.
this is the way the NBA kind of is. You're gonna go on big runs and big
Yeah.
slumps, and hope that at the
Yeah.
end of it you make the dance.
Big time.
Yeah. Yep. Looking over the West, Houston's lost first place in the West. Golden State's taking that over with 28-7 as their record. 9-1 their last 10. So they're playing really good ball right now.
Ooh.
Houston's 25-7 in second place. San Antonio's 24-11. Minnesota's 22-13, and Oklahoma City has actually picked it up. They're 20-15. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're starting to pick it together and find out how to play with Paul George and Westbrook and Carmelo. Carmelo's kind of settled into being a lesser role, kind of the Bosch of the group. It seems like.
Which he
Um,
needed to.
yeah, I mean, out of the three, Melo is definitely the least talented player between them. Now, at least. I mean, Melo in his prime, maybe. But
Yeah, he was definitely a premium scorer when he was in his prime, but he needs to take 2 steps back and let the
yeah,
young guys do what they need to do.
absolutely. Other than that, I mean, there's not really many surprises as to who is and who isn't in. I mean, looking through it, the teams that are in are the ones I thought they were. Now that Oklahoma City's back into the playoff line with it, getting their stuff together. And then the teams that you thought would probably be pretty bad are kind of at the bottom. It seems like that's how the NBA works out. There's not a ton of surprises from year to year. You can pretty much tell with the talent level on the team who's getting in and who isn't, for the most part.
Well, yeah, when you have one way or another, LeBron's been in the last 16 finals or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's never really a shock.
Yeah, who knows though? This might be the year. I mean, they're struggling right now, but they were playing good ball, and they could get Hayward back if they make a deep enough run. So,
yeah.
on top of that, there's some other teams in the East that could threaten them too. So, the Cavs aren't looking anywhere near as dominant this year as they normally do. Now, mind
Yeah,
you,
they have to get Isaiah back. We need to see what happens
exactly.
with him.
Speaking
That's
of
a big
that,
if.
he has been dressing the last couple games. He's not playing, but he's been in Jersey. He's been on the sidelines. So it's looking like sooner rather than later. They still don't have a timetable for Isaiah to come back. I think they're being extra cautious with it. I thought they might bring him back against Boston, obviously for reasons.
Yeah.
I think they play them not their next game, but the one after. But supposedly the news is they don't want to bring him back in a marquee kind of game, aka they don't want to bring him back against someone really good that they need him to play big minutes against. They kind of want to ease him back into it. So if that's the case, they definitely won't bring him back against Boston. But
He's kind of a streaky shooter too, so you don't want to bring him back in a big game, him miss a bunch of shots and get in his head for the next, however many games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of streaky, Flea used to like to go streaking back in the day, but we won't talk about that. Anyway.
I think we should talk about that.
That never happened.
I think we should talk about that in great detail because this seems like interesting. Okay.
On that note, let us switch. Let's lace them up, boys, and throw some fisticuffs. What's going on in the NHL, Todd? Because
a lot going on in the NHL. Let's start same thing with injury news because there is a lot of big injuries right now.
Mm-hmm.
Start with some of the older news is that earlier in the week, Cam Atkinson, you know this one. He's out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken foot. I want to say the Blue Jackets miss him, but man, he's not having anywhere near the year he was having last year. I think he had 13 points when he got hurt.
You know what was
Something like
funny
that.
is I kind of remember. I don't think it was in podcast per se, but I think we may have just been talking off the air, if you will. And I remember we were talking about Columbus and about Cam, and I'm pretty sure I remember saying that I really did not think that he was going to be able to replicate his goal. I mean, he scored like 35 goals last year, didn't he?
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
just
he had a
like,
career year last year,
I
and
just
he got
didn't,
paid.
yeah. Yeah, I just didn't really see that happening again. And sure enough, he was already kind of slumping, and now he's out for like,
Mhm,
a good while.
mhm.
So,
Now, do you
yeah,
remember what he got? I think 5.75, right? And it was a pretty lengthy one. I think it's 6 years, 5.75,
something like that. Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
So,
If he keeps up this kind of pace, they're definitely going to regret that contract. But Columbus has a lot of contracts like that they end up regretting. I mean, they're still paying Dubinsky over 5 million.
yeah, I mean, Cam, I think when it's all said and done, he'll probably be end up being mostly worth that contract. But Columbus is a team, uh, they just haven't had all that many skilled forwards. So like, once he performed that way, I'm sure they felt the need to, make sure that he wasn't going anywhere. I mean, whereas now you look at Panarin, I mean, he is
Oh,
easily
Panarin's a superstar, dude.
well,
There's no doubt about it.
well that, but he's easily the most skilled forward they've ever had. I mean, unless you want to go back to I Rick Nash,
The
but
Rick Nash days, yeah.
I don't I take Panarin over Nash then and now.
And definitely now. Now,
Um,
back when Columbus had Nash, that was during Nash's prime when he was a 40 goal scorer. So,
yeah, but
um,
so I just feel like because they haven't really had many, if any, superstars, if you will. So I think that might be why they tend to kind of overpay these guys who usually aren't going to put up those kind of numbers. But
yeah, I can see that. I can see that, but they're starting to get there. I mean, they've got a lot. This is the most talented roster I think they've had that I've seen.
oh,
Obviously, with Panarin,
they're a
uh,
hell of a team now. I mean, they're a very solid
Josh
hockey team
Anderson.
now. Yeah.
Josh Anderson is a really talented forward that's coming into his own right. Foligno, can score. He's not a huge scorer, but he can. But yeah. Looking at some other ones, Corey Crawford was placed on the IR earlier the week by Chicago with an undisclosed injury. They didn't give a term. They didn't give what he has. It's going to be at least 2 weeks if he's on IR, so he can't come back until January 3rd, I believe, was the timeline when they put him on IR. Might have been the 13th. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't read that fully right, I don't think. But Crawford, I think he was like third in save percentage and fourth in goals against average this year. He's been having a pretty great year for Chicago and one of the few bright spots for a kind of struggling year for them. So they're obviously going to miss him. They're going to want him back as soon as possible because a goalie is one of the hardest positions to replace if you don't have good depth, and they don't really have insane depth at goalie. I mean, they got a couple decent backups, but no one that's Corey Crawford level.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be tough for Chicago. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they've not had a super great year to begin with, and it just got more uphill, obviously. So.
Yep. Um, Speaking of teams that are struggling, our own Pittsburgh, Letang has moved to the IR. He missed the last game with an undisclosed injury. It was originally supposed to be day to day, but they've reverted it back to IR now. They also lost in the last game Russ to an injury that's supposedly longer term. It looks like he might have had something with his arm at some point in that game. Ruedel is week to week, and Murray is day to day now. They just called up to Smith because Leighton is also hurt down in the AHL.
Already?
So just yeah, that was quick, right? Um,
Jeez.
the Smith's gonna be backing up Jerry. I figured Jerry is probably gonna get the next start anyway, though. So I don't know how big of a deal this is. If Murray misses more than one game for it, it's obviously a big one. But um,
Well,
Murray needed a day off anyway, and against Carolina, I figured they'd give Jerry that start.
yeah, I'm not too worried about Jerry. I think he's solid. I think he could play the next handful of games. It wouldn't phase me personally very much. The thing about Letang is interesting because there have been rumors that mostly literally began just today that the Pens might be shopping him, and that was going to be a deal that would be so hard to make in the first place because I mean, because I'm pretty sure that he has like a no trade clause and then like a
He has an 18-team no trade clause.
yeah. So I mean, I really don't think like even if they, huh?
All the ones that are bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably.
I
I mean,
don't think they would be able to move him even if they really wanted to. I mean, it would be very difficult to begin with. But now, on top of the fact that he's on IR, you don't have Ruedel for at least a couple weeks now, and their main trade piece is probably Ian Cole.
mhm.
So that really complicates.
And don't forget the fact that Schultz is already on IR too.
Yeah.
With
So
no real clear timetable of his return.
yeah. So I still think they might move Cole, but I really don't think they're going to move Letang. I just don't see it happening.
They're not going to be able to get the return back from Letang than what he's worth. I mean,
no, it's just not going to
between his
happen.
injuries history, his kind of tough contract to move, and the fact that he's having an awful year for him,
Yeah.
for really anybody. He's having a decent year offensively. I mean, I think he's like 4th or 5th among defensemen in points, but I can tell you from watching him, he's struggling in his own end badly.
Yeah, he definitely has. Now, let me ask you this: with the rust injury, do you think they finally just say screw it and call up Sprong?
Nope, they called up Garrett Wilson.
Oh, did they? Well, never mind.
Yes.
There you go.
They called up to Smith, Corrado, and Garrett Wilson. So, it seems like JR is dead set on not calling up Sprong this year.
Seems that way.
For whatever reason. I don't know if it's he doesn't trust him in the big minutes. I don't know if he doesn't trust his defensive game.
I think that's what it is. They don't think he's a complete enough two-way player yet. But when you consider no one on the Penguins is really playing defense anyway, I would just throw him in there.
The defensemen on Pittsburgh are barely playing defense, so
yeah.
Yeah, but no, I don't think we'll see Sprong in Pittsburgh this year, to be honest with you, just because management seems to be dead set in giving him a full year in the AHL to mature.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, given that this year might be a lost year for Pittsburgh anyway.
It's getting there. So they don't have much time left.
Weiber and the time off his contract at the entry level position,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, last two notes I have for injuries. Chris Kreider is out indefinitely for the Rangers. They found blood clots in his right arm. He noticed some swelling before the last game. The doctors checked it out and cleared him because it wasn't too bad, and then it got worse as the game went on. He got to the point where he couldn't play, and he went to the hospital, and they found a blood clot in his arm. We know how blood clots work with Stamkos and guys like that have gone through them. Who knows how long that's going to be? Could be a couple weeks, could be the whole year. You know what I mean? There's just no telling with it. As long as he's on thinner, trying to get it out, he can't play hockey. So.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah. Yep. And then the Jets lost Mark Scheifele during last night's game.
That also
He's out
sucks.
6 to 8 weeks with an upper body injury. He had 38 points, 38 games. He had 82 points last year total. Scheifele is one of the most underrated players in the National Hockey League, in my opinion.
He's
the dude
great.
is a superstar, and no one ever talks about him.
Yeah. Well, that's just because he's in Winnipeg, but.
But even in Winnipeg, it seems like Line A gets more attention to him. You know what I mean?
Well, he's probably a little bit younger, right? And that's my only guess as to why that would be.
Liney's in his second year.
Yeah.
But I just don't get it, dude. The dude's dropping point per game. I mean, he's scoring at an elite level, and they just don't never mention him in those terms with like guys like Stamkos and Crosby and.
Maybe we should. We should trade Malkin and Crosby for him.
He's not that good.
I'm just kidding.
But Tampa should definitely trade Kucherov and Stamkos for him, 100%.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That'd be a great idea.
Yep. That's it on the injury front, though. Couple of suspensions we could talk about. I'm sure you might be aware of what I'm talking about.
Ronaldo, the ex-Flyer. Let me tell you how shocked I am.
We'll get to Ronaldo first. Frederick Claesson, Ottawa's defenseman, got suspended 2 games for a check to the head of Akari. I think that's how you say his name, from Boston.
Okay.
I saw that hit. It wasn't pretty. Akari was skating at the blue line. Now Akari did have his head down. You know how that goes. The defense is always the guy should have his head down. He should know where the player is. But Clayson came across and caught him straight shoulder to head, and the NHL is not going to put up with that anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he got 2 games. It's his first offense. He's not known for being a dirty player, so that's probably why he only got 2 for it. But he's out for those. It was a dirty hit. It definitely needed to be a suspension, to be honest with you. Now, Ronaldo, he got 6 games for a sucker punch on... Did you see what happened with that, Sean? Have you seen the replays of what went down with that?
Yeah, I mean, he threw... Well, actually, for once in his life, he threw a clean hit on, wasn't it McKinnon, right?
Yes, he did throw a clean hit on McKinnon. McKinnon got a little shook out from it, nothing like bad. It just stunned him for a second. Gerard went over to, pretty much any time somebody takes a hit, even if it's clean or not, the way the game is, the teammates are going to come in and say something or try to, get in the guy's face, make sure he knows he's not going to get away with that. So Gerard comes over and gives him a little bit of the business, a little shove, you know what I mean, nothing like that. But Gerard never dropped his gloves. Gerard didn't really look like he had the body language or an indicator that he wanted to fight. Just kind of, starting to scrum a little bit. And as he was tangled up with him, Ronaldo dropped his gloves and gave him one quick sucker punch and dropped him.
Right, yeah.
I thought... I've seen a lot of people trying to defend Ronaldo on this one. I thought it was dirty. I thought it was really dirty. Mostly because you can just tell from the way Gerard's body language is that he's not trying to fight. He's not trying to drop the gloves. And there is just kind of the unspoken code in hockey that you don't fight like that, drop gloves and actually throw a fist unless both guys kind of agree to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I could see why Ronaldo thought that a fight was probably incoming, but I mean, he dropped his gloves literally like instantaneously and then just punched the guy. And it's stupid too because I mean, he's a tough guy. Like you can let your opponent get ready and fight, and he still probably would have won the fight. So yeah. I don't really see why
he did. Gerard's known for being a fighter at
all. Yeah,
exactly.
So it just seemed like very premature on Ronaldo's part.
Do I think this gets 6 games if it's not Zach Ronaldo? No. His history definitely came into play with that.
Oh, well, yeah, but that's how it goes. So.
You're talking about the guy that got 5 games at the NHL level and then 5 games at the AHL level the same year. I think it was last year. He's a suspension magnet. He's known for just being a dirty player. I don't think he has a place in the league right now. I'm amazed that he's still playing for any team at all, even in Arizona. I don't know what he brings besides dirty hits at this point. He's not a scorer. He's an enforcer, and it's a dead role in the National Hockey League. So this might be the last straw. Get back after this, maybe. Something like that. We can only hope because that kind of stuff doesn't need to be in the game.
Well, we thought the same thing about the Pens, and then they went and get Reeves. So.
Yeah, but the thing about Reeves is Reeves fights, but I don't think Reeves is really known for throwing dirty hits like that. You know what I mean?
That's very true. Yes. Yeah.
Reeves will drop the gloves and he will fight in that term of enforcer, but he doesn't do it in a dirty manner. He doesn't hit unsuspecting guys. He doesn't do anything like that like Ronaldo does. There's a difference between being an enforcer and being a dirty enforcer.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference with it. So.
That's a good point.
But as we also know, I'm also a proponent of Reeves not being an every time starter for the Pens. Although he's been playing a lot better the last couple games. I'll give him that. He's generated a couple high scoring chances that he almost scored on. So he's proven to me the last couple games that he can keep up a little bit in the high energy line. So
yeah.
Last thing in the NHL, you might have seen this. Johnny Bower died this week of pneumonia at age 93. He's a Hall of Fame goalie. He played back in the 60s. He helped the Leafs win their last Stanley Cup. He helped them win 4 of them actually in total. He's a heck of a goaltender. He's, like I said, he is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. There's been a lot of different things going on around the league in remembrance of him this week. I know Toronto's playing right now. They've got a special decal on their helmet honoring him. So, sad news. Anytime a player like that dies, you don't want to see it. But it was 93. He did have pretty good career to lay back on, but still sad to see anytime you get a legend like that passing.
Yes. Well, Todd, in the end, time comes for us all.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get Flu back in here and cap this off with the NFL. Yet second straight week where the Patriots seem to catch a break from the officiating. We'll get to that. What do you got there, guys?
Well, we'll start off with the most recent news. Giants got a new GM, Dave Gettleman. They just named him GM, I think, earlier today. It's pretty recent news there. Obviously, they fired their GM and their coach the same week after the whole Eli Manning bench debacle in week, I think that was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't remember how long ago that was. So, obviously, new management, they're going to have to hire a new coach unless they keep the interim coach, but I doubt they will. But they're starting the process of rebuilding their front office there. Keeping with the Giants, Flu, have you heard anything about this whole Eli Apple situation?
I saw him. He was tweeting something, but I haven't really kept up with it.
It's kind of an internal battle going on between Eli Apple, who was their 2016 first-round pick. He's a corner, and Landon Collins, who is their young kind of safety superstar.
Yeah, he's
Collins tweeted out something calling out Apple this week because I haven't read fully the situation. I guess Apple claimed that Collins wasn't one of the guys that, kind of helped him out or mentored him in his first year or anything like that. When Collins is saying that he did, very much so, and that he called Apple a cancer in the locker room, actually, on a radio host. So it looked like there was some weird tension going on back and forth there. It's kind of looking like Collins might be right because the Giants have suspended Eli Apple for the last game of the season for missing a practice and something else. I can't, like a team meeting or something like that. So it's looking like he might have a kind of a case on Eli being a bit of a prima donna. If he's not fitting in there, it'll be interesting to see what they do. He's a talented player. He's been struggling a bit, but he was a first round pick in 2016. He might be on the market for a trade this offseason if he's not working in the locker room. You know what I mean? Especially with the new GM and everything going on there. Outside of that, a little bit of minor news. DeAndre Hopkins is gonna sit for the last game of the season with an injury. It's only noteworthy because he hasn't missed a game yet, I think, in his 5 years, they said. So it's the first time he's missed. But Houston's out of the playoffs. There's no point in him aggravating something for a meaningless game. So. And then the Chiefs are actually starting their rookie quarterback, Mahomes, in the last game of the season. That's because they're locked in the 4th seed in the AFC. They can't improve. They can't go up or down from this point. So they're basically sitting out Alex Smith a week and giving Mahomes a look and see how he's going to play. I don't know. I always hesitate to do this, the whole sitting the quarterback before the playoffs thing, because I think it comes back to bite you more often than not. But the Chiefs aren't a team that runs through their quarterback anyway, so it might not hurt them too bad. What do you think about that, Flu?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City's going to live by their defense and their run game. That's
Yeah.
as far as they'll go in the playoffs as far as their defense and Hunt takes them.
Yep.
So either way, it's fine with me.
Yeah, especially like I said, they can't improve. They're locked where they are. Not a bad time to give a guy a look. Um, especially a guy like Mahomes, who they took pretty high, and they're looking at him to potentially be their quarterback in the future. So, before we get into the Buffalo New England fiasco, New England, man, New England just loves to start controversy. Sean, let's talk about James Harrison.
Oh yeah, my God, I forgot about that. Well,
Yeah.
so you can imagine being that I live up here in the Berg. Radio shows have just been like in full like meltdown mode over that.
I know that Mark Madden, because I follow him on Twitter, has been lighting Harrison up all week. Not only that, but guys in the locker room, didn't Pouncey say something in an interview about him ruining his his legacy with Pittsburgh by doing that?
Yeah, it's honestly more and more of them are kind of coming forward and pretty much saying that they don't really feel bad for Harrison and they think that really just kind of that it was a dick move and I mean I kind of agree. I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. I mean, I'm just of the opinion that if the Steelers thought that he still had enough left in the tank to play consistently or was, you know, superior to who they are currently playing, I think they would be doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
especially because Mike Tomlin and Harrison are like really good friends. So, I don't think it's some kind of like personal thing where they were like not playing him for some reason like that. Um, and plus, I mean, he didn't do himself many favors either. A week or two ago, when he had said, he was quoted saying that if he had known he wouldn't play that much, he wouldn't ever have signed in Pittsburgh. I mean, I understand how
No.
the guy feels, but I don't know if that's something that you say mid-season.
No. No, not at all. No.
You know what I mean?
I
So,
actually read a report earlier today that he has not been on the sidelines for the last 2 games.
oh really?
Um, he stayed in the locker room 2 weeks ago and didn't come out to the sideline. And then I actually read a report. Sorry, not the last 2 games. It was before the Patriots game. The 2 games before that. The game before the Patriots game, he actually left the stadium while they were still playing.
Yeah,
From
I
what I read,
mean,
that's not good. That is
no,
not good.
it's it's very unprofessional, and I really, I agree a lot with Matt in like in the sense that I think he's being a big baby about it, and I think he's letting his ego get in the way, and
Yeah, because I mean, I get you're not starting, but what happens if one of their linebackers goes down or two of them? You know what I mean? Like who they might need you to play at some point. You're on a contract. You can't just leave the stadium. You know what I mean? That's
yeah,
not a good look.
I just yeah, and like especially it's like like in the middle of the season you're gonna go to I don't even know. I mean, I suppose you could say that the Patriots are like rivals of the Steelers. Not really in a traditional sense as much as the Steelers just can't seem to beat them when they need to.
I would say it's more
But
of a kind of like a two top teams in their conference kind of rivalry. You know what I mean?
yeah, and so I mean, it just looks really bad on his
Much the way
part.
the Colts and the Patriots, even though they weren't
Yeah,
divisional rivals at the time, they were the two top teams in the AFC. It was pretty much every AFC championship was Colts Patriots.
yeah.
That's the way it seemed to come out now with the Steelers and the Patriots. So.
It's gonna be really awkward and embarrassing too if he ends up like not really even playing. Like if he ends up just kind of sitting
There's
on
a
the
large
sideline.
consensus out there that he might have been signed just to kind of feed Belichick some defensive schemes and
Well, that's a move the
inside
Patriots would
information.
make. That's absolutely
Yeah,
something they would do.
They do it with the
it's not
AFC East all
illegal,
the time.
but it's shady. And
What was that
if the
for?
Patriots can get a shady advantage,
Being a Dolphins fan, they all of a sudden when one of our practice squad guys or uh, one of our people that we get cut, all of a sudden you'll see, oh, he was on Buffalo Bills, a week ago. Now he's on the Patriots practice squad. Oh, he was on the Dolphins, 80 man roster. Now we have to go it down. Now he's on the Patriots practice squad, and all of a sudden, hey, this is what they're gonna do. This is what they're scheming. This is what's yeah,
yeah. Now, I
it's
mean,
been done for a long time.
these players are supposed to have NDAs in their contracts, right? I'm pretty sure
I
every
believe
NFL
so.
contract has an NDA in
Yeah,
terms of playbooks and
they have
things
to
like
give
that built
back
into it.
they have to
But
give back the playbook too as well. But you can still remember things.
yeah,
You can't,
but come on, like
Yeah,
we all
It
know that
happens.
NDAs. There's no way they can prove that he gave out the information. You know what I mean?
I think Harrison will play for the Patriots. I mean, they don't have anybody else to play, so I feel like
we know what's
probably a
gonna be
genuine
really
sign.
funny is
I
if
think he'll play
he.
just on the.
Huh.
I think he'll play just on the, especially the Steelers game, just on the kind of rivalry. Harrison will play the game of his life there, more than likely. So
Well, you know what will be really funny is if he ends up not playing much like he did here. And the reason that'll be funny is because, let's face it, Patriots are probably going to win the Super Bowl. And Harrison was famously or infamously quoted. It wasn't that long ago. Uh, his kids got like participation trophies, and he made them give them back or something like that. And so it will be funny if he's like on the bench and they win the
so
Super Bowl.
if he doesn't play
Because
in the Super Bowl game, you think he'll get his ring back?
I doubt he will. I highly doubt he will. But so honestly, I mean, I don't want the Patriots to win, obviously, but I kind of hope that plays out just because I think it would be really ironic and hilarious. Um, but yeah,
Funny.
needless to say, Harrison probably is gonna end up not being as liked as he was here for this
Yeah,
stunt. So,
I can
but
see that, but let's get into the big thing, the thing I want to talk about, the call in the Buffalo New England game.
mm,
I'm assuming by now we've all seen it, right? We all saw the play.
yes, yes,
Yeah, believe you
yeah.
saw it, right?
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
did.
Okay. What did you guys think? Was that a catch? Was it a no catch?
I think it was a slightly more intensified version of what happened with the Steelers. I think it was a, I think it was a play um, that was even more inconclusive, and so I don't understand how they can overturn that.
Yeah. Here's the problem. I can't say 100% that they don't have a point that he didn't fully have control of the ball when his first foot touched. Um, because he dragged his back foot and he had control then, but his other foot was in the air at the time. And it's kind of in terms of when did he have full control of the ball. However, where I have the problem is the fact that they called that a touchdown on the field, meaning that when they did the replay, they had to find inconclusive, like 100% evidence that he did not catch that ball before he got both feet down. And I don't think you can make the claim that they had that. I don't think you can make the claim that they saw enough there that they could definitely say no, he did not have possession of the ball before he had both feet down. Um, it's again, it all comes down to what they call it on the field, and that's supposed to have the preferential treatment. Um, if the call is made on the field, you're supposed to have 100% full evidence in the replay to overturn that call. Otherwise, if it's inconclusive, you can't tell one way or the other. You should stick with what the call was made on the field. I feel like it was inconclusive, and at that point, they should have stuck with what they called on the field, which was a touchdown.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. It's just again. I mean, I'm just gonna sound like a Patriots hater. So be it. I mean, I I completely acknowledge that they are consistently the best team in the league every year. They have one of the best coaches and QBs of all time. It's but on top of all that, it just seems like everything bit. Not I mean not obviously not all the time, but so often things just seem to go their way. I mean, dude.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing. So dating back to the
Well,
Steelers game
mm-hmm.
and then the Bills game, they were so
3 penalties, 9 yards.
in 8 quarters, 3 penalties for 9 yards. I
Yep.
mean,
Meanwhile, the other teams have gotten penalized 146 yards total in those.
yeah, and again, they are probably the most well-coached team in the league. They're probably not going to take that many penalties, but 3 penalties for 9 yards in 8 quarters,
Yeah.
and two reviews that it's just I don't know. It's all the way back, all the way back to the Tuck rule, and then
You're not alone on this one because I know Mike Piera. I can't remember his name. He's an old official.
yeah,
He came out and said he has no idea how they overturned it. And then who's the guy that was the ex-VP of officiating that they get all the broadcast all the time to bring in? Do you know what I'm talking about, Flu?
I can see his
Blandino? Is it
face.
Dean
I can't
Blandino?
remember his name. That sounds right.
I think it's Blandino. He also tweeted and he said, to me, that's an inconclusive review and they should have gone with the call on the field.
Yeah.
When you get the ex-VP of officiating plus an old ref, both who are brought in week by week to give their opinions on how a ref should be calling this and everything like that, and they say, yeah, that's a catch, or at least it shouldn't be overturned. That's a little crazy to me. Also, the ref that made the call in the first place supposedly told the head coach of the Bills that it was a catch. He thought it was a catch during the game as they reviewed it, because he came back and said, "How is that not a catch?" And the ref supposedly told him, "I have no idea. It was a catch to me." So I mean,
I heard that soundbite. Yeah.
Oh Lord.
That's funny.
Because I guess it wasn't the refs that made that call. It ended up being the
Head office.
the situation room. They came back and reviewed that and overturned it because it was like right at the end of the second, right?
Yes.
So they couldn't challenge it. The challenge had to come down from the booth at that point. So
It's just unreal, man. Like, they don't need the help. Like, they didn't need Spygate.
No, I mean,
they didn't
I'm
need
not even trying to
Deflategate.
argue that Buffalo would have beat them without that, because they probably would have either way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's just like they don't need the help. They don't need the, they don't need the officials, like, pretty much not calling penalties on them, or like spying on other teams, or, I mean, they don't need to do any of that. They're a great football team all the time, but they don't need the help.
Yeah, I hear you. Um, the penalties thing is crazy to me too, because like you said, I get they're a well-coached team, but there's holding on every play in the NFL. There really is. I mean,
absolutely.
if you look deep enough, a lineman's holding on every single play. And it just depends on if the ref wants to call it or not, or if he catches it.
Yeah.
So you're telling me in 8 quarters they got 9 yards for the penalties? I mean, that's what?
It's absurd.
Like,
and like
that's crazy to me.
again, we're not the only ones saying it. I mean, I remember after that game looking on Twitter, and there were like all kinds of people that were just like, how?
It's pretty much anyone that's not in the New England fan base
Well,
right now saying like, how? Like,
yeah, it's just that, and these two very controversial calls that have gone their way. It makes you wonder. It really does.
Yeah, it's tough to not come out and say, hey, what's going on here? I'm not gonna sit here and start a conspiracy and say the NFL wants the Patriots to win or anything like that.
I'll start
it. Flu will start it. Flu don't care.
Flu will start it.
They had like a third of the fumbles of everybody else, and turns out they were deflating the balls. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll never get the people that are like, what does that matter? It doesn't help. I'm like, have you ever tried to strip a flat ball off of somebody? Like, come on.
Tom Brady's, he's not a big dude. He needs to grip those balls tightly, and he had a little air out of him,
Yeah. Yep.
I love when you grip balls tightly.
It's crazy. It's 2 weeks in a row, like you said. It's 2 really iffy calls from the refs. I think this one's even iffier than the James catch.
It is. It absolutely is.
It's both times. I mean, I can see the argument that they're trying to make, but at the same time, at least the James catch, they called that incomplete on the field, right? And then reviewed
no.
Did they not?
No.
I thought they called it incomplete on the field.
No, it was a touchdown.
Okay. So both times it was called one way on the field, and they overturned that. Again, it comes down to they're supposed to have completely inconclusive, 100%. There's video evidence to the exact T that it was not a touchdown. And at least in the Benjamin case, especially even more so than the James case, I don't think they could make the claim that they had 100% irrefutable proof in those cases. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if the NFL. I mean, it's a huge story right now. It's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's going to be enough of a firestorm caused from it to make them change anything in the off season. Maybe they'll have to start putting out. What I would say is have them put out a report of what they saw exactly. You know what I mean? The NHL does that when they have calls like the OT call that just got called back against Pittsburgh. Every time they do that, they put out a video from their situation room explaining why they made the call they did.
Right.
The NFL doing that would definitely help, especially in cases like this when it's a situation room overturning the call.
Yeah.
Tell us what you saw that was consequential evidence. Otherwise, we're just going by what we see on our TVs, and some of us might, especially casual fans, might not know all the rules, might not know what's going on with that. It just doesn't look good for the NFL to not know what a catch is. Um, it's pretty crazy.
Well, boys, I know you're not Steelers fans, but you better hope they beat the Patriots because I don't think anybody else in the AFC can.
Yep, you're 100% right about that. So.
All right, well, that's it. I guess we can go ahead and sign off here.
Sounds good.
All right, well, thanks as always for listening. Todd, thanks for joining us. Flu, same to you. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe, comment. If you didn't, comment, tell us why. And be sure to also check out our weekly podcast on video games. Todd, we'll do this again next week. Flu, I think your vacation might be about over at that point. I don't know if you'll have time to rejoin us given your med school endeavors, but if ever there is an instance where you have time, you're more than welcome to join us.
Absolutely.
So, all right, it was good talking to you guys, and we'll do it next week.
Sounds good. Have a good one, Sean.
Later.